the cheesecake assassin, Danny Mitchell. He wasn't some UFC megastar, but he quickly earned cult status thanks to that ridiculous moniker. The backstory? Simple. He loved cheesecake. That's it. No tragic childhood tale or epic gym story. Just a British MMA fighter with a sweet tooth who leaned all the way into it. And somehow, this nickname stuck like frosting. Inside the cage, he was anything but soft and fluffy. He fought twice in the UFC, and while his record didn't exactly scream assassin, he went 0-2. The nickname guaranteed that fans remembered him. It made him instantly marketable, even if he never cracked into contender status. What made the Cheesecake Assassin iconic is how self-aware it was. Mitchell understood the theatre of fighting sports and decided to stand out with humour, not bravado. The murderous maths teacher, Mark Potter. He fought professionally in the late 90s and early 2000s, holding the British heavyweight title briefly in 2000. But while his in-ring career was solid, it's that incredible nickname that made him unforgettable. This guy really taught maths during the week and knocked heads on weekends. Chalk dust one day, uppercuts the next. Fans loved the contrast, and Potter owned it completely. He leaned into the image of the quiet schoolteacher by day who turned violent in the ring, a double life that felt straight out of a comic book. His most famous fight? Facing Danny Williams in 2000, where Williams fought with a dislocated arm and still won. Potter lost that fight, but his nickname lived on, becoming part of British boxing folklore. Meathead, Matt Mitrione. Before switching to MMA, Mitrione was an NFL defensive tackle, and he didn't bother with a flashy nickname. He fully embraced the stereotype, loud, brash, blunt, and ready to brawl. It suited him perfectly. So, when he first appeared on The Ultimate Fighter Season 10, he immediately stood out for his big personality and wild energy. Teammates and coaches joked about him being a meathead, so Mitrione owned it and made it his official fight name. That's how you turn an insult into a brand. Inside the cage, he delivered exactly what his nickname promised: chaotic, aggressive scraps, where technique sometimes took a backseat to swinging for the fences. Fans never expected a chess match when Meathead was fighting, they expected entertainment. And it worked. Mitrione carved out a long career in both the UFC and Bellator, facing legends like Fedor Emelianenko and knocking out plenty of opponents along the way. The Korean Zombie. Chan Sung-jung. When you hear the Korean Zombie, you can already picture it, a fighter who just refuses to go down. And that's exactly why Chan Sung-jung's nickname became legendary. It all started in Japan. In 2008, after an early fight, a Japanese promoter called Jung a zombie because he kept walking forward through punches, looking like he couldn't feel pain. The name stuck immediately, and fans loved it. In the UFC, Chan Sung-jung made the name iconic. His fight style was pure chaos, aggressive, fearless, and borderline reckless. Every time he stepped into the cage, it felt like a war was about to break out. One of his most famous moments? A spinning back elbow knockout against Leonard Garcia that sent shockwaves through MMA. And despite the nickname, he is known as one of the nicest guys outside the cage. Soft-spoken, humble, and quiet. But once the door shut, total zombie mode. Cupcake, Misha Tate. It might be the most misleading nickname in fighting sports history, and Misha Tate loved it that way. The story behind it? Back in the early days of her MMA career, Tate needed a nickname that stood out. While most fighters went for something terrifying or intense, she flipped the script. She picked Cupcake as a tongue-in-cheek way to disarm opponents and poke fun at the nickname clichés in combat sports. It worked. On the surface, Cupcake made her sound sweet and harmless. Inside the cage, Tate was anything but. She became one of the toughest women to ever compete in MMA. Former UFC bantamweight champion, known for her grit, relentless wrestling, and iron will. Her battles with Ronda Rousey? Instant classics. She even survived brutal submission attempts just to keep pushing forward, showing more heart than most tough-sounding fighters could dream of. The Vanilla Gorilla, Chase Sherman. Sometimes a nickname just sounds ridiculous enough to stick. The Vanilla Gorilla is exactly that. Sherman didn't overthink it. He leaned straight into absurdity. A heavyweight brawler from Mississippi, he gave himself the nickname as part joke, part branding. Vanilla because he's a white guy. Gorilla because, well, he's a heavyweight who swings wild. It's a rhyme, it's catchy, and fans latched onto it instantly. Sherman fought in both the UFC and bare-knuckle fighting championship, and no matter where he showed up, the Vanilla Gorilla made people smile before the first punch even landed. The name added personality to his fights, a mix of southern charm and goofy swagger. But don't let the silly name fool anyone. Sherman's fights were exactly what fans expected from a heavyweight. Lots of action, lots of knockouts, and very little caution. He made no secret of his game plan: show up, brawl, and entertain. The hillbilly heartthrob, Jason Knight. He got that nickname early in his career, partly as a nod to his southern roots, and partly because he just looked the part. With his scruffy look, thick accent, and fearless attitude, he leaned into the stereotype completely, and fans loved it. Knight wasn't trying to be polished or marketable in a mainstream way. He was just being himself, unapologetically. In the UFC, Knight became known for wild, gritty fights where technique often gave way to grit. He won Fight of the Night bonuses, got cut open regularly, and somehow always kept moving forward, talking trash in his thick drawl the whole time. His nickname worked because it told you everything about his vibe before you even saw him fight. Equal parts tough guy and chaotic character. Touchy, Andre Philly. Back in his early days at Team Alpha Male, Philly's teammates gave him the nickname because of how often he got into scuffles and his hyperactive energy in the gym. He was known for being a little too touchy, poking, pushing, constantly sparring with everyone. It started as a gym joke, but Philly embraced it completely. And honestly, it works. Touchy Philly is catchy, weird, and immediately makes you wonder what kind of fighter you're about to watch. Inside the cage, Philly fights exactly how you'd expect from a guy with that nickname. Active, aggressive, always pressing forward. He's one of those fighters who never really has a boring fight. Whether he wins or loses, it's action-packed. The Axe Murderer, Wanderlei Silva. This nickname didn't come from clever marketing. It came from Silva's fight style in the early 2000s when he was ruling Pride Fighting Championships in Japan. The man fought like an actual berserker. He didn't jab, he didn't dance around. He blitzed forward with hooks, knees, and soccer kicks, looking like someone who'd chase you down in a dark alley. The look helped too. Shaved head, cold stare, twitchy intensity before the bell even rang. Fans and commentators didn't need a long explanation for the nickname. The Axe Murderer just fit. His fights were legendary. Silva's 10-fight win streak in Pride included brutal finishes and highlight reel violence. When he fought Quinton Rampage Jackson, pure carnage. Knees to the head, clinch brawls. Exactly what people expected from a guy with that nickname. Even when Silva eventually transitioned to the UFC, the nickname stayed iconic. You heard the Axe Murderer, and you knew chaos was coming. The Count, Michael Bisping. This one was less about scaring opponents and more about clever wordplay and a little British flair. Born in Cyprus but raised in Lancashire, Bisping discovered that he actually descended from Polish nobility on his father's side. His family history traced back to the aristocracy, and he decided to run with it. The Count wasn't just a nickname, it was a playful nod to that lineage, wrapped up in swagger and Bisping's trademark trash talk. In the UFC, he fully leaned into the role. He made himself the perfect villain, cocky, loud, willing to taunt opponents and their fans, all while backing it up inside the octagon. He carried that nickname like a title, embracing the image of a snobbish noble ready to throw fists. And Bisping fought everywhere, fought everyone. From The Ultimate Fighter Season 3 to finally capturing the middleweight title late in his career, the Count always felt like a character made for fight promotion. The name stuck because it fit Bisping's whole persona. Sharp tongue, royal attitude, relentless style. Big Daddy, Gary Goodridge. Goodridge made his name in the early days of MMA and kickboxing, fighting in Pride and the UFC, when things were still raw and wild. The nickname came from his days working as a champion arm wrestler, where Big Daddy just sounded right for a guy built like a refrigerator with fists. And once he stepped into the cage, Big Daddy got serious fast. He was famous for explosive knockouts and brutal power. His UFC debut? He memorably trapped Paul Herrera in a crucifix and delivered a flurry of elbows that's still replayed today as one of the most violent finishes ever. The name Big Daddy didn't scream menace, but that's what made it stick. It was almost disarming, like you'd expect a warm hug, then get your lights turned out. He fought anyone, anywhere. He became a fan favourite because of his knockout or be knocked out style, and the nickname Big Daddy added a strange charm to his highlight reel career. Irish hand grenade, Marcus Davis. He started as a professional boxer before transitioning to MMA, so the nickname wasn't just clever wordplay, it was about style. High pressure, high action, fists flying. Davis had Irish heritage and a reputation for throwing heavy leather, so Irish hand grenade fit perfectly. During his UFC run in the late 2000s, he fully embraced the nickname. Walkouts draped in Irish flags, a tattoo of a hand grenade on his arm, the whole package. He leaned into the image of the brawler, ready to go off at any second. In the cage, Davis delivered plenty of firepower. He earned multiple Fight of the Night bonuses and highlight reel knockouts, especially in his early UFC fights. His aggressive, fan-friendly style made him popular, and the nickname became part of his appeal. The Maniac, Tim Sylvia. He wasn't flashy, but he was effective. He worked his way up through the early 2000s UFC heavyweight ranks, using his massive size and reach to bully opponents. The nickname, The Maniac, helped brand his image, part regional pride, part play on words, all tied to a guy who didn't care if fans booed or cheered as long as he got his hand raised. And Sylvia had big moments. He became a two-time UFC heavyweight champion, beating Andrei Arlovski in a memorable trilogy. He wasn't the most technical fighter, but his awkward, lanky frame and smothering style frustrated opponents and entertained fans who loved or hated him. The best part of the Maniac nickname? It captured everything about Sylvia's vibe. Big, tough, unpolished, and coming straight from small-town Maine. Super Sage, Sage Northcutt. If there was ever a fighter who looked like a comic book character come to life, it's Northcutt. And his nickname, Super Sage, nailed that image perfectly. He burst onto the UFC scene in 2015 as a fresh-faced 19-year-old with a sculpted physique, flawless hair, and a smile that looked straight out of a toothpaste commercial. He radiated clean-cut superhero energy, and UFC marketing jumped all over it. The nickname Super Sage stuck fast, branding him as the all-American karate kid with next-level athleticism. Inside the cage, he showed flashes of brilliance, spinning kicks, flashy submissions, wild scrambles. He won his first 2 UFC fights by stoppage and quickly became a fan favourite. But it wasn't just his fighting that made him stand out. His polite, upbeat interviews and relentlessly positive personality made Super Sage feel almost unreal in a sport known for trash talk and tough personas. Whether fans were cheering or rolling their eyes at how wholesome he seemed, Super Sage became one of MMA's most recognisable nicknames. The Baby Bull, Juan Diaz. Juan Diaz picked up that name early in his boxing career because he looked like a teenager but fought like a wrecking machine. By 20, he was already winning titles, and by 21, he was the WBA lightweight champion. Short, stocky, relentless. He pressed forward like he was on a mission every second of every round. The nickname stuck because it was perfect. He was baby-faced and youthful, but in the ring, he overwhelmed opponents with swarming punches and non-stop pressure. He didn't wait for openings. He created chaos and kept punching until you broke. His most famous stretch came in the mid-2000s when he unified lightweight titles and looked unstoppable. He racked up wins with sheer volume and grit, rarely giving his opponents breathing room. For fight fans, hearing Baby Bull on a fight poster meant action guaranteed. The People's Warrior, Brian Ebersole, he never felt like your typical UFC fighter. Wild chest hair designs, a constant grin, and a fighting style that made fans wonder what he'd try next. He was unpredictable in every way. And his nickname? The People's Warrior. Not some generic branding move, though. He earned that title because of the way he fought and carried himself. Fans loved him. He embraced the underdog role, took fights on short notice, and entertained every time he stepped into the cage. The most iconic part? That chest hair arrow. For years he shaved an arrow into his chest, pointing toward his face, like a walking, fighting cartoon character. It became his trademark and made him instantly recognizable, even before he threw a single punch. And the fights delivered too. He mixed wrestling, unorthodox striking, and veteran savvy, racking up a 4-0 start in the UFC during a late career run when few gave him a shot. The Nigerian Nightmare, Kamaru Usman. The nickname has a history. Before Usman, NFL running back Christian Okoye carried the name in the late 1980s. When Usman rose through the MMA ranks, he borrowed it as both a tribute and a warning. And it fit perfectly. Born in Nigeria, raised in the US, Usman dominated fights with suffocating wrestling, relentless pace, and a ruthless streak. By the time he became UFC welterweight champion in 2019, Usman was living up to the nickname every time he fought. His title defenses read like a list of broken men. Colby Covington, Jorge Masvidal, Gilbert Burns. He drained them mentally and physically. Fans quickly connected the name to his iron grip on the welterweight division. Once the Nigerian Nightmare was across from you, the nightmare had already begun. Tank, David Abbott. He gave himself the name because of how he fought and how he looked. Built like a wrecking machine, goatee, brawny arms, and fists that swung from wild angles. He wasn't technical, he wasn't pretty, but he didn't care. He stepped into the octagon looking like he'd just walked out of a bar fight, because that's exactly how he fought. From his UFC debut in 1995, fans knew what to expect. He rushed forward, throwing bombs with zero hesitation. Sometimes he flattened his opponent in seconds. Sometimes he got exhausted and folded just as fast. Either way, he guaranteed violence. And his personality outside the cage matched the nickname. Loud, brash, unapologetic. He talked trash like it was part of his fight contract. And that's it. So, which of the nicknames do you rank as the funniest, weirdest, or most outrageous? Share your thoughts in the comments section below as you leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more amazing videos like this one.